far to date. I hope you all have had some time to review the information that's in your packets. We will provide some detailed summary of that tonight as well. Unfortunately, technology is not our friend tonight, so you have slides in front of you that we will be walking through rather than a presentation, unfortunately. We did prepare a presentation, and you have that in front of you as well. You will also have a packet in front of you, and we will be referring to that throughout the presentation, so you'll have those two documents. So with me tonight also is Melissa Scott, and Melissa is the project manager, and she has prepared all of this material for you tonight. I'm here as her support, and so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Melissa to lead us through the rest of the meeting tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. So, I wanted to talk to you about the information that you have in front of you so you can keep up. Like she said, doing this on paper is a little different for us. Usually we have the presentation up on the wall and it's a little more seamless, but the small packet is just the slides that I'm going to be talking about that normally would be on the wall. The large packet is a memo that we prepared about all of the work that we've done since we talked to you last. So the first few pages are general information. We have several attachments that are included. And on the slides, if you'll notice, sometimes up in the right-hand corner or somewhere on the slide, it'll say attachment number 2 or number 3, so you can keep up a little better with what we're talking about. So just to give you that extra piece of information there so you can keep up. So the first page here, we have just the introduction slide and the agenda that we're going to go over. So tonight we're going to be looking at the review of the current process, the proposed outline of the chapters. This is the way we're proposing to outline the plan, review of the public input that we've been going through. We've given you a draft of chapter 1, that's included in one of the attachments. We've updated the demographics profile and prepared a nice little graphic, which I think that's really good information that you all can use for several different things. It's got the updated population and income and things like that. It's a really useful little document. And then we're going to work a little bit. We want you to help us refine the vision statement for the plan and talk about the goals. So we have some goals from your last plan that we'd like to go over just to see if you think they're still relevant. And then we have some proposed new goals. And I'll talk to you a little bit later about how we've organized it a little bit differently than your old plan. So if you go to page 2, why update the comp plan? We've talked about this before. Of course, things change in the natural and the built environment, so we need to keep things updated. Local priorities and vision changes, and strategies to achieve that changes. And of course, it's legally required by the state of Virginia. The project scope tonight, we've reviewed this before, but to go over it again, we'll be reviewing all of your plans, the public input, workshop and survey, and now we're going to be establishing the final goals and visions. Can you all hear me if I stand over here? Let me see if I can do this. There we go. Got more notes on my computer.
Just pull the mic over.
Yeah, I can do that. All right. Okay. So then we'll start the draft plan. That's going to be us doing a lot of work, me doing a whole lot of work. And then we will come up with some implementation strategies for the goals that we come up with for the plan. We'll have the final public review where everyone will look at the final plan, we'll refine it. With your help, we'll be having meetings with you after that so you can help us with the final tweaks on the plan. And then we'll go to public hearing and adoption. So what's in the comp plan? The Greensville 2040 vision, this is the one that has all the little pictures on it. these are all of the chapters that we're proposing for your plan. So we'll have the first chapter that we are giving you the draft for tonight is about plans, kind of the legalities and things like that that we're going through, and what we found in the public input sessions. We'll do a county overview, and then we'll have a land use section, a natural environment section, housing, community facilities and recreation, economy and infrastructure, transportation and mobility, and then we'll have an implementation chapter. So this is set up a little differently than your old plan. The old plan had multiple goals, multiple goals for each of these things, like several for natural environment and several for economy, things like that. What we're going to try to do, and you're going to help us tonight, is focus on one main goal for each of those chapters. And then we will look at strategies. Everything in that chapter will speak to that goal. And then we will come up with strategies with help to actually, fulfill those, and things to recommend specific tasks that the county can do to meet those goals. And the vision is kind of the overall, it overarches everything else. You can help us find that tonight. That should basically just tell us who you are and where you want to go. So, chapter 1 draft. We have that's included in your packet. It's attachment 1. That includes the legal basis for the plan, the jurisdiction that this plan will cover, relationships to other plans and policies that you have in place, the community input overview. We're going to go into that quite a bit tonight. And then finally, process for the review and adoption, which is not quite complete yet because that step is not complete. So let's take a look at the public input. Page 4 of your slides. So public engagement is included in chapter 1 as a summary, but you also have attachments that outline the specifics of the things we learned in workshop number 1, the stakeholder meetings, workshop number 2, the online survey, which I will remind you 50 times tonight, I'm sure, but it's open until this Friday. And we've gotten what I think is a fairly decent response for a rural community. We have maybe close to 120 responses on that. So in your packets, I had looked at what the responses were at that point. We got a few more, and what I have in the presentation is a few more than what was in your packet, and hopefully we'll have even more by Friday. So if you know of anyone who hasn't taken that survey, please tell them to do it before this Friday. So let's talk a little bit about what we learned in workshop 1 and workshop 2. Some of you were involved in those, but we feel like we got a pretty good response from people on that. In the first workshop, we determined the strengths and challenges as the community saw it, as the participants saw it. We identified the needs and desires of the community, discussed the overall vision, and then we came up with some suggested goals to achieve that vision. We then took all that information, collected it, and the details of that are in your attachment to all the notes from the meeting. We came up with some goals that seemed to be, we kept hearing about over and over and over. And we came up with a list from that for workshop 2. And we asked the participants to refine that. And they did that. They came up with specific things about each of those goals that was important to them. They gave us some priorities. And we started to develop some local strategies, but we didn't get very far on that. That's something that we'll be tweaking all along the way to come up with these strategies. And you guys be creative. When you're thinking about this plan, just think about it kind of every day, in your life, think about, that would be a good way we could meet this goal or that goal. So think about that all the time, things that we could do to meet these goals. We like to be creative. And then finally, we looked at maps in that meeting a little bit, identified locations for future development. And we'll just tell you briefly that people pretty much want to stick to the areas around the cities. I mean, it was clear in every question, every map that we reviewed that they really would like to keep the development confined to around Emporia and Jarrett, maybe a few of the small rural community intersections. So the goals that, so page 5 now, community goals. The goals that we talked about in those meetings were to attract industry and expand small business opportunity, to improve education systems and facilities, to support new recreation and entertainment opportunities, improve and diversify the housing stock, take advantage of the transportation infrastructure, and increase communication and cooperation between the government and the community. So, little gray area down below each of those goals is the top priority that we determined in that workshop number 2. So to attract industry, we thought that improving the quality of life in the local communities help retain, attract new, and retain your workforce. The education and system facilities, they really thought that the facility replacement for the education system was an important thing. They thought for new recreation and entertainment is something that we've heard over and over. Their priority was to use the current public spaces that you have and just utilize those more, do events and programming for more concerts and maybe festivals and things like that. The housing stock, they really thought that increasing single-family homes under $200,000 was an important step. And that would mean probably houses on smaller lots rather than the large rural lots, so they would be less expensive. Of course, we all want to take advantage of your great transportation infrastructure here, but there is some concern about the local road maintenance and safety. There's only so much you can do with that. You would have to cooperate with VDOT on that. And then for increasing the communication, they just thought that town halls, more meetings with you all would be nice to be able to interact a little bit. So you could hear what people were saying face to face. So that same day that we did workshop number 2, October 28th, we also did stakeholder interviews that day. We organized different groups. Those people were invited by the planning staff, and then invitations were distributed by the Chamber of Commerce. They were realtors, developers, business owners, the county school and community college representatives, economic development and industry professionals attended, and county staff from various departments. There were 13 participants total for that. And the groups there, that's how we organized the different sectors and the discussion points, the questions that we tried to get them to answer were what they thought the community assets and future opportunities were, what the potential quality of life improvements would be, if they had any land use and development considerations, and then we asked them for future strategies. And the details of their answers are also in that attachment to specific notes for workshop number 1, workshop number 2, and stakeholder interviews. And the third thing that we've done for public input is the community survey that we were talking about. And like I said, we've gotten pretty good responses, over 100 people. And I pulled out just some of the I think the most important questions that we ask that will help guide you all when you're making your decisions. We will, when that closes on Friday, we'll do a full assessment of that and provide you with an analysis of the results. So if you look at that first one there, the first little draft community survey, the question that was asked is, what do you value most about Vincent County? And I was actually kind of surprised that 55% of people said rural character and open space, which that's usually the case in rural communities. But I just haven't heard that very much in the workshops and public input. So just happy to see that. Sense of community, 33% said sense of community was what they valued most. And then the natural environment was actually third, 26%. The low crime rate and then proximity to larger cities were also important to people. The topics that I have in gray underneath are just the ones that are not on that graph because they just couldn't fit all those categories on the graph. And so those are the ones that got a lesser response. Those are People thought they valued the education system, low taxes, ag and forest industry, employment opportunities, community facilities, recreational opportunities, and housing. So you can see the specific percentage of responses there. And then the other one that I thought was pretty important was what concerns you most about Greensville County's future? And the number one answer for that was, of course, lack of job opportunities. That's the biggest concern in most communities today. But number two was right on with what we heard in the workshops, which is the quality of the schools. 55% of people were concerned about that. And then broadband and internet availability, which I know you all are working on right now, but it's definitely what people were thinking about. Fourth is the development of population growth, keeping the taxes low, the traffic and road maintenance, and the high cost of housing was 13%. The other concerns were declining population, emergency services, degrading of the environment, and a shift from the ag economy. It was pretty interesting things to look at for communities. The other one that I thought was important was what should Greensville focus on as plans for the future. And of course, number one was economic development and employment. And that was 65% of the response. Quality of public education, again, 58%. Utilities, which include broadband, was 42%. Promoting affordable housing, 25%. Parks and rec, quality development, public safety was all around 20% of respondents. And then the lower response for preserving the environment, social services, roads, walkability, and preserving historic culture and resources. I think that gives you all, I mean, you all probably know this stuff about your community, but I think it's really interesting to see it in graphs like this. And like I said, we will give you the details of all of the questions once the survey closes. So the next thing I want to talk a little bit about is in attachment number 3, and that's a demographic profile. That will be included in chapter 2, which we are not completed. We haven't completed yet, but we didn't want you to see this demographic profile because it really helps, I think, helps you see what's going on in your community. So the full sheet, it's one nice sheet that we have is in your attachment, but some of the things that I pulled out was the households. We have 3,600 households. This shows you that 61.9% have broadband or internet subscription. I was a little surprised that it was that high, but this comes from the census, the American Community Survey information. That's where the data comes from. And then you have your classic population breakdown. You have 11,336 people. And then we went even a little further and looked at the health and education. So the life expectancy is 74, and in Virginia it's 79, so that's pretty good. And the education is 14.7% of associate's degree or higher. So it's a little lower than the Virginia rate, but not too much. And then look at income. So the median household income for Greensville County is $44,500. And that's a little lower than the Virginia average, as you can see on the graph. And the distribution of county household incomes, how much different percentages make up the population. So get into look at that. I think some of you guys are pretty good to look at it.
Just one comment I thought was very interesting. The demographic stuff I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
One thing that, and a lot of it surprised me. But one thing, and it's no, I mean, this is just kind of a fun fact, but with the demographic thing for people, the female and male population and the age groups, gosh, the female population in the older ages far exceeds the female.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. That is actually fairly common. Women live longer than men. But, you know, what's interesting is, you have, it looks like maybe there's a little bit of a shift. There's also the one bracket higher, there's a lot of men. So maybe women marry men 10 years older than them, because those two are kind of equal.
Up through the 50s, they're pretty close, but beyond the 50s and the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
comparison.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. And
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I mean, it's something you see on paper. You know?
yeah, and you have to kind of wonder, sometimes that kind of data shows that, you know, older women tend to see if that's part of the poverty. So, because they, you know, often women, they didn't have the income, they don't have the pensions and things like that to support them when they're older.
One thing I think is a little misleading, this is something you got from the census data, 61.9% people have broadband
Yeah.
internet.
That's what I
Well,
thought
I
too.
thought that was high too.
And yes, they don't have adequate internet broadband. Anywhere you have cell phone coverage, they're gonna look at and say you have internet broadband if you have cell phone coverage, and that's not adequate. I think we need to use DHCD, the VADI program they have now, Connect America. I think we need to get some of their data to where, you know, they determine if it's adequate or not adequate.
Right.
We don't have 62% coverage in Grayson.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Not close.
We will look at that and, maybe add, you know, the comparison on that.
I've got some doubt.
Okay. Yeah, because that is high.
I would have thought that number would have been half that. Really, it is.
So you think that when it says subscription, that's gonna include the cell phone data? When it says that, you know, that data did say that they have an internet subscription, so do you think that means that
I
they're
think
talking
it's
about the cell?
available, but they're looking. Connect America has some good maps to show you what's available, what types are available, what speeds, whether it's DSL, fiber. And when I apply for all these grants, we can only apply for areas where they have. So I actually have a upload, download app, right, what determine what the speed is at your highest, and the state is to find what adequate is. And I think we need to concentrate on that instead of, well, they can give Verizon, but they might have to be standing on the roof and attic, maybe one to get 1 megabyte upload.
Yeah, that's the case in a lot of communities.
I think we need to go with EHCD and connect, kind of what Connect is doing.
Okay.
As far as that.
We will look at that.
That's true, because I know like Mike sent out to us before and has used that. And we don't, I mean, we have a Verizon restriction, we have a Wi-Fi, you know, we had to get a booster. You know, and that's still, it's not adequate, you know, I can't even download up 11 gigs that I might get from Lynn. That might take me 20 or 30 minutes on any given day. And some days it's 5 minutes, but other days it's
Yeah.
because we're just operating off of the line.
A lot of communities are fighting that, the federal government wants you to use the data, you know, it's available to, you know, and it's not accurate. And some communities are really fighting about that.
And we have a subscription, but it's again, it's a lifetime subscription. We don't have, you know, we did start available, we don't have cable, you know, out there, and so we can't get the cable provider, really have fiber optic cable, they need to.
Yeah.
So,
Good. You have an update on it, you can hear about.
oh, the next 2 years, our numbers really go up.
Good. I knew you were working on it, so. So, the next slide we have here is about the community vision. So just to tell you a little bit about what the vision statement is,
I think Joe had something.
oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask a question. Do you happen to know the age group of the ones that responded back to your survey?
Yes. We had very few, no young people, you know, none like under the age of 18. The bulk was between, I can't remember what the categories were, but I do remember just in my head, basically, it was like from the 40s to the 60s, you know, that 20-year, those are the most respondents were in that age, that group there. And we'll tell you that whenever we close the survey and give you the full results. I'll tell you exactly how happening. But we do need some definitely need some young input. You know, sometimes in normal times, sometimes you can have activities in schools and things like that. It's just, you know, really struggling with this COVID thing and haven't been able to be really very creative this time. Was there an age group that you were particularly concerned about?
I was kind of concerned about people over 60.
Oh, yeah?
But I don't know if that's here.
Yeah. It was, I think, up to 65, and then it dropped off significantly. So, yeah. The young and the old. So the vision statement that we want to work on tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what that means. I'm sure you've all done vision statements for other things before, and organizations, but the key to finding a vision statement is to summarize who you are as a community and where you're going in about 1 to 3 sentences. You want your vision to be positive, realistic, and accurate. A vision is broad, but also specific. So you think about what makes this place unique, and who you are as a community, and who you want to be. So we took, we did a little exercise in workshop number 1 where we just asked people about the vision statement. There's no specific responses, there were just some generalities, so we took all of those responses and kind of tried to roll the general responses into one vision statement. So this is what we came up with, and we're fully open to changing this tonight if you guys want to think about it more, even in past the meeting, you know, and think about it, and if you no responses, that's fine too. But what we come up with is Regional County will support economic and physical growth that fits our rural character, sustains our economy, and utilizes our new infrastructure while cultivating a more robust residential, educational, and recreational environment that will achieve a better quality of life for all citizens in our diverse community. So we tried to touch on a little bit of everything, and we'll get into revising this. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of get through all of this and then go back to doing some work.
Is that written in the packet?
Yeah, it's in your memo. There's a section for the vision statement, and it's also on the slides. It's right here on page 11. Like I said, we're open to changing that however you like. And then the other thing that we're going to work on tonight is the goals. So we're going to look at the past goals, review those, and ask you if they're still a priority for you by ranking high, low priority, or not applicable. And then we're going to look at the proposed draft goals that we come up with, and see if those are also your priorities or you want to change those. But first of all, I wanted to go over the next steps. So we'll be done with that, and when we're done with our exercises, we can just be done with the meeting. But the next steps for this whole process is that we have a community survey, which is now going on through the end of the week. We'll start drafting more chapters. So we'll start with number 2, have that for you next time, and probably another one. We'll be working just getting these chapters completed through the winter and into the spring. And we'll be having more joint work sessions with you all along the way. So we'll complete a couple chapters, we'll come back in February, again in April, and then probably again in July. So we'll be providing you the chapters as we get them done, and you can make comments and guide us in the right direction. We'll then have the public open house. We'll present the full draft. Summer 2021, incorporate final revisions, the community's comments, your comments, get it all packaged up, looking pretty and ready to go for the public hearing and adoption in the winter of 2021. It's a long haul. So, just a last reminder there, I put the website again for the survey, and then the county website address, so you can stay informed, because we're putting all this information on there. So if you know anyone who wants to see it, or if there's anyone watching screening us, we get on that website, and on the county website, there's actually a reasonable comprehensive plan tab that you can go to, and all the documents are attached. We'll continue to add those as we go through this process, so you can see those. And that is all of the full presentation, but we want to work on the goals, and if you guys want to take a quick break before we start working on the vision and the goals, or if you're ready to go, we can just move on.
Do we
Good.
have to
So
decide
that was
on,
up to you,
do we have to decide on the vision statement today?
Not necessarily. Like I said, we can tweak it, talk about it. What do you think the best way is to, do we have a cutoff date or anything that we want to?
So in terms of making decisions tonight, this is an ongoing process that will continue to reiterate. But the vision helps to establish the kind of overall theme of the plan and the direction that we're going. So it's good if we can talk about it tonight. If a bright idea comes to you and you're really mulling it over and feel that it's something that you want to bring back, generally throughout this process, we're going to provide you information in advance and then come to the work sessions and try to make decisions so we can move the process forward. There's always going to be topics that require a little more thinking, and this may be one of them for you, or it may be something that you're able to easily make some changes tonight, and we'll move on from there. So kind of think, make a decision and as you mull it over, but we do want to definitely just talk about this tonight as one of the issues too. Just because there's so much in each meeting that we have to talk through.
But to me, this seems like one of those things one might need to take home and think about. Like, for example, this is Joe's opinion. Having a word like robust in the definition of your vision. What does robust mean to my man over here? What does it mean to Lynn? What does it mean to Mr. Allen over here? I mean, I find words like that here is a little bit ambiguous. So I know it has to be comprehensive, but it also needs to be, in my mind, a little more specific.
So we've got time today to do that. So we left, an hour and a half of this meeting, an hour, to work through some of those things. So
That's just my opinion. Everybody else can be just totally disagree with you.
Well, let's take a few minutes right now, and you guys look at it and study it, and then we'll talk about, especially if you have like a topic that you think is missing from there, or something that you want to highlight a little more. That would definitely be helpful. Just take a few minutes and read that over and think about it.
then I'll also just note, where we talked about this in the work session is on attachment to page 4, where the community kind of worked to create some ideas for the vision statement, if you want to read what some of the community members came up with.
Anybody have any topics you think are missing from the statement? Or anything you would like to take out of that?
I thought it was fun. I'm happy to take out the word boss. Everyone too. I was happy that you put, you know, to use the word, Google, because I thought that was, you know, important to people. You know, I guess, again, living in lots of different places, all of them bigger cities. You know, I sometimes I struggle with, is it just because this is home, or is it because it's also rural that it's nice to, you know, not deal with traffic, to have living space, you know, not to be on top of the neighbor. You know, when it is nice, your stress level goes down, your blood pressure goes down. And so that, you know, I think that's important, and people lie about, well, we don't have jobs, you know, and it's a fine line between having lots of jobs and not having any open space left, and having open space left, and how do you, you know, how we balance that, because that's tough to support the community, so that not everyone has to travel outside of the community to have a job, because long commutes are hard on people too. You know, and hopefully, you know, in the next 20 years, we're gonna be at that intersection where, you know, there is no more space in Richmond, and it comes down where, you know, we want industry here, but then we're gonna give up some of the rural and open space,
So what you're heard you say is like the slow pace is
The
like
slow
really
pace.
more important than like rural.
well, you know, but then sometimes slow pace seems
Sleepy.
backward, you know, or whatever, so, you know, I don't know, but it is, I guess, you know, in the more rural, like, again, it is a slower pace because of, you know, other traffic. And there's not as much going on, but that's good for some. I mean, I think it's important to be heated there. I know sometimes we struggle with the charcoal character and stuff like that, and there's some solar farms and things like that. Again, when you're trying to be comprehensive in general, it's so many words that you can use, right?
Anybody else have any comments of things they want to see more of or less of in this statement?
The only comment that I have is, you can mention on page 4 and attachment 2. I guess these, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points. 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th bullet point down. I really love the way that reads. It talks about community with strong family values,
Yeah.
unique community offerings, become a closer bound community. Gosh, if we could get some of that language in that, I think it would really make it more personal of a vision statement. And I don't know exactly how to suggest you do that, and I just really like that language.
Yeah. Nice.
So we're on page 4 of attachment 2, that reads, as a constantly changing community with strong family values, Greenville County will support growth, sustain our unique community offerings, and strive to become a closer bound community while achieving economic growth and educational excellence for our citizens.
Makes me kind of proud to think that that would be a description of our community.
Does anyone support that assessment? Change, like, do we want to go in a completely different direction and consider that, or would you like us to kind of take some of that back to the drawing board and maybe incorporate it into this?
Did we say some of this input from.
This is from workshop one, so workshop one.
Did you find what he was talking about?
Oh, I'm right here. I'm right on it.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
Personally, I like number 3 better. Really kind of describe the.
Young and old. I mean, is that like what you really like the most about that one?
I mean, it's more inclusive, it's inclusive, right?
Yeah. So we can kind of rework this and add in a little more of the community values, types of language, and work